Hello, YouTubers, and welcome back to another episode of General Geekery. I am Brian, and as always, with me is JD.
Hello.
And I am still coming to you from quarantine in Houston. Totally not in an airport not in a hotel next to the airport.
Um, well, it looks like a very antiseptic room with generic art on the walls and uh, generic lamp coverings in the hotel room.
Yeah,
So,
it probably was antiseptic when I got in here, but I have left my room a total of 3 times in the last week and a half, and nobody has come in, so that means nobody's been cleaning it. So it is very far from antiseptic right now. In fact, I'm so lazy, I just eat while I'm sitting on the bed. And so I, I'm pretty sure those barbecue stains are not going to come out of those sheets.
eh.
So,
Um, so, is it as interesting as you thought it would be in quarantine?
uh,
You,
not
you look
really.
absolutely miserable, dude.
Dude, I haven't seen, I've been outside once for like 5 minutes. I did that on Sunday. I've been like avoiding people just so I don't, even though we're like segregated, I just been avoiding going out of the room so I don't catch something. So I don't, in case one of these guys got it, so I don't miss my chance to go back to work.
I could not live in your situation. I have to go outside and smoke. I
Yeah.
have to.
Well,
So,
the smokers can go outside and smoke, but I'm not going outside to do that.
okay, well, what good is quarantine if the smokers are allowed to go outside and smoke?
Well, they've got a fenced off area that no one else is allowed in.
Is there a large plastic bubble like ET X Files style over the
Doesn't
fence area?
it doesn't need to be one. There's nothing within 100 meters of it.
Yeah, but it'd be awesome if there was.
I can't believe
Um,
there would be.
it's like that. It's like that site that Shield set up around Mjolnir
Yeah,
out in the Mexico desert.
yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. I was thinking of something more like the lines of from the X Files, but yeah, it's pretty much like that, just with a lot
Well,
less
yeah,
Thor and
because
a lot less Hawkeye.
because in the first X Files movie they had that hole those kids fell in, and they constructed that whole
Yeah, that's what I was.
complex around it.
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking of. I have been working on cards, my custom card backs, and my last batch, I made a mistake on the first one that I did and didn't catch it, and I built on that template. So all of those cards were wrong. I made mistakes on all of those cards. So I spent like a day going back and fixing those. And then
Could it have really been that egregious that you had to go back and redo the whole batch?
yeah.
Oh wait, what'd you do? Misspelled something?
No, I had the picture of the character on there twice on the checklist.
Ah,
And then it just progressed to each time I made a new card, that figure got his picture on the checklist twice. So eventually, by the time I got to Crystal Ball, there were 5 different people that had their picture on there twice.
ah.
And I didn't realize it until, I don't know, I was talking to my wife and I was looking at this. I'm like, hey, I noticed that Firefly, the picture of Sneak Peek was listed as Firefly, is what tipped it off for me. I'm like, that's not Firefly.
Ah,
Then I started
well,
looking at it a little closer and a little closer, and I'm like, fuck, these are all wrong.
oh, dude, I don't make custom cards. I don't even know how to use Photoshop. But if I did, I would have done exactly that, except it would have been something goofier. So,
And then I did the card back for the custom for the back of the card for the custom challenge that we're doing, and I literally spent a full day doing that from like the minute I got up to the minute I'm like, okay, it's done and it's midnight and I'm going to bed.
All right. Well, there's two things about that.
But
First of
it
all,
looks
um,
awesome. This
well,
thing looks fantastic.
well, first of all, I'm impressed at your fastidiousness, your determination, and your consistency. I have
What
none of
else am
that.
I gonna do?
Dude, even if I was in quarantine and I had nothing else I could do, I still would not have been that diligent. Um, I would have found at least 8 different ways to distract myself, including staring at the ceiling and trying to determine how many coats of white paint are on those walls.
Yeah,
Um,
3.
and also, and also, wow, I don't know how you haven't gone out of your mind
Well, I just about did
yet.
yesterday because the internet went out and my hotspot ran out of time, so I had like no internet yesterday. So I was ready to
So,
kill somebody, and I haven't had coffee in almost 2 weeks now. So,
so
which is a big thing for me.
wait a minute, hang on. They give you food, right?
Sort of.
But they can't just like I don't know, send coffee up to the room.
No, because somebody's touched it.
Oh,
Everything
yeah. This
everything
is what.
contactless. They don't deliver the my food comes in a sealed, like heat sealed bag that they set at the door and knock and run away.
Oh, well, yeah, but they don't even have like the powdered coffee that you can mix in your sink in your bathroom.
I don't have a way to heat up water. I don't have a kettle or
Dude,
a microwave.
how the hell did they
Coffee.
not get?
I've got like 3, 4 bags of coffee with me. I've even got a travel grinder. I just don't have a way to heat water. And I've got bottled water till hell won't have it, but I don't have a way to heat up water.
Wow,
Yeah. So
fuck that.
yeah.
Fuck that situation.
On the positive side, they give me 14 Red Bulls every week, so that that makes things a
So,
little more tolerable.
so wait, hang on. They give you Red Bull so you have energy and don't have to fall asleep. But
Oh, caffeine doesn't touch me. I could drink.
well, I was gonna.
I could drink a whole Red
Yeah,
Bull
but that was
before I went to bed, and it wouldn't phase me.
okay. But that's why I'm like, but they're giving you Red Bull and people that are affected by the caffeine. Well, what's the point? Because
It sucks to be
you
them.
don't have anything to do in the room. Did they do? Is there a television in there with cable or something?
Yeah, but it's really, really like basic local TV. I don't even. I turned it on when I got here. I'm like, this sucks, and turn it right off. I've got movies.
Well,
I've got a shitload of movies. I mean, my step counter on my watch is like, hey man, still alive? I mean, let's see. I've done 667 steps today, which is it's a high day for me.
um. So, well, okay. Since you have movies,
Yeah.
what are you watching?
I watched V for Vendetta.
That's not a surprise.
Yeah, and then just like pretty much just surfing the internet, looking for customizing ideas and looking at toys. That was one of the things I was going to mention. Is that one of the things that that I do on this channel is review the Joy toy figures, and there are new Joy toy figures available for pre-order. I've been getting my stuff through Locker Toys. It is in Hong Kong, but due to the pandemic, they've had to kind of eat some of the cost of the shipping, and they ship them from Hong Kong like 3 days. Stuff gets when stuff comes in, it ships and it's at my house in 3 days. And they've got some really cool figures.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll drop some pictures in here. I actually don't remember the name of the set of figures. Hang on a sec. I should have pulled this up.
Well, it's not like we're ever prepared to do the podcast, so
right?
this is not new. Hey, cat, what are you doing? Get out of there.
All right.
Pringle, stop it. Stop it. Get out of there.
So I'll pull it up so you can see it, but I'll drop pictures in here. It's called Skeleton Forces.
I saw, I saw those. Because I'm in one of the, I think I'm in the Joy Toy group, or maybe I liked one of the. Yeah, I saw the pictures of that.
So it's a set
Am
of
I
three.
mistaken? Well, am I mistaken, or did Marauder have something similar that they offered like last month? There was something in wearing all black with like, I don't know, a red mask, or
I don't know. I didn't see
oh,
them.
maybe not, maybe
And then they've got a separate standalone female one.
not. She got a mech suit or like some kind of
Yeah,
harness on.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. So I mean, it's really reminiscent of the female range viper that I did a couple of months back.
Hang on, hang on. Show me the picture again.
Yeah, let me find her with their helmet on. There's
You know what that reminds me of with the uh with the harness thing on. Did you see the movie Day After Tomorrow?
yes,
That's what that reminds me of.
nice. Yes,
That that
power.
power apparatus that Tom Cruise wore into the first his first incursion into uh that hellish nightmare.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually enjoyed that movie.
oh, I love that movie. I like that movie so much that um, I don't. I know they're supposed to be making a sequel,
Heard
but I I almost um, I'm almost nothing they do with the sequel will affect my enjoyment of a first one, but I hope
there's
that
some
a
things that just
sequel
don't
can
need a sequel.
maintain. Yeah. I mean, and it could be great. I mean, especially if all the same people are making it, there's a chance, they could, they could capture the same lightning in the bottle, but I don't know. That movie's awesome. And in fact, it's even better when you put the alternate title on it of Live, Die, Repeat.
Right.
And that movie is phenomenal. Any of our listeners that have not seen Edge of Tomorrow, what the fuck are you doing? Go watch that movie
Yeah.
immediately. Pause this shit and go watch that, and then come back and feel satisfied.
Maybe I'll do that tomorrow myself. And then
Hell, I might do that tomorrow.
they've got
Ooh.
another 5-man set up. It's another uh, Chinese army, but the camouflage is really reminiscent of a pattern that the U.S. forces uses. So
The glove details, that is phenomenal.
yeah, these figures are amazing. I absolutely enjoy them. Yeah, they are a bit expensive, but it's small batch toys. We've talked about that before. It's they're making them in
Yeah.
small batches and higher quantities, so yeah, they're going to be more expensive. But they're
Um,
fantastic. So I pre-ordered the set of the 3 skeleton guys. I pre-ordered 3 of the female, and I pre-ordered the that 5-man set that I just saw. So when those come in, hopefully those will be in. Hopefully by the time I get home. So I will be doing a unboxing and review on those when I get home, because I'm hoping those will. I think they're supposed to ship sometime this month. So
um,
things that we wanted to discuss on tonight's show was that one of the well-known customizers, he's done 3 3/4 inch stuff, but he was really known for his Sigma 6 stuff. Quite a number of years ago, died last week from COVID-19. unfortunately.
Yeah. Stuart Lee Hickman Jr. He was not. He was not anybody I knew in person. I never met him. Um, but I admired his work way back when Sigma 6 first started, and I started buying them. He was already making customs, and the half a dozen or so customs I made from Sigma 6, the look of them wasn't necessarily inspired by what he was doing. The look of my customs weren't necessarily, because I tended to go a little more out there with both character choices and my designs for them. But um, he, I want to say, I believe that he managed to make Sigma 6 customs of nearly every character that got a release in the Real American Hero line. He did Star Brigade. He did Ninja Force.
Yeah.
He did Battle Force 2000. He did Iron Grenadiers. And I want to say, I think he did Sigma 6 versions of nearly every character, pilots, drivers, obscurities, that was in the original line. Plus, he made a bunch of other characters that were ancillary.
Yes.
And he even made characters that weren't Joe's, and he put them in the Sigma 6 line. So
Yeah.
the last time I saw a picture, the last time I saw a picture of one of his displays, they were 8-inch tall Sigma 6 characters of the different years set up with all the characters, and dude, it took up like a wall. I I cannot imagine how much room in the house his customs took up, but I can't imagine. I also can't imagine how impressive it would have been to see.
Yeah.
I mean, his work inspired a lot of people,
Yeah.
and he was well known in the GI Joe community. I mean, he was a longtime member of Joe Customs. That's where I saw most of his work.
Yeah, absolutely. I was still on Joe
and
Customs back then, and I was not a big fan in any way, shape, or form of the Sigma 6 figures at all, honestly, but I always looked forward to seeing new work for him, because it's like I just didn't see a lot of depth in the Sigma 6 line, but he did. And I really appreciated that. And really always looked forward to seeing new customs from him, just to see who he would come up with and the parts choice that he used to create those. And it's just like, it was brilliant, inspired. It was awesome. And the world is a darker place for him not being in it any longer.
He did vehicle customs too. In fact, I want to say, I think Monty, my buddy that takes the toy pictures, he's the one that posted, and it was on his timeline, and it was he was saying, he was in shock, because he died. I'm like, well, what happened? I made a response, and so he was the first person I found out from. And like a couple days later, he posted a picture that he had pulled off Stewart's Facebook page of some crazy big toy from another toy line that had all kinds of greeblies, and I don't even know what the thing was supposed to be. Looked like kind of an ocean exploration thing or something. But he said that Stewart had mentioned trying to make a Sigma 6 scale Cobra Bug out of whatever this piece was that it was going to start out as. Yes, the world is a darker place without him and his creativity. I don't know. I think it sucks. I mean, there's really, any time a collecting community like this, or a creative community, loses somebody, it always diminishes the whole.
I agree.
Last year, my buddy Arnold Barrios died, and a lot of the groups on Facebook that I was in have never felt the same since Arnold left. Before that, there was a guy named Ron Mercer who always commented on my O-ring stuff. He died, and it's, each and every one of these people is a true loss, and it sucks and it hurts. And anybody who Look, I don't know anybody personally in my life, uh, my everyday real life that has been affected by COVID-19. But now my hobby has now it's now it's affected somebody who shares a hobby with me, and I feel like it's getting closer to eventually somebody in my immediate circle might be affected by it, and it sucks.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I don't know. I feel like yeah, I don't know. I feel like the world is getting darker, and when we lose these kind of bright lights, I think it just makes it a little tougher for all the rest of us.
Yeah,
But
that's hard to argue. I normally would, but I cannot.
I'll say Stuart Hickman, aka Vanishing Point. I hope you found peace. I hope you're okay now.
Yeah. Let's see. What else did we have tonight?
Well, here's something we've. Okay, hang on. Anyways, fuck. On that note, or on a completely separate note, something Brian and I wanted to discuss for a while. Like we did our top picks lists from the vintage Real American Hero line. Well, we talked about doing a segment about the 2002, uh, 2003 GI Joe versus Cobra line, and I want to talk about that
I think that's
because
a good topic.
despite some despite some questionable choices with articulation changes early in the line that they quickly corrected when they got a whole lot of negative feedback on it.
Yeah.
Like a series later, they went and they retooled a bunch of them with, they have the classic. Not all of them though.
No.
A lot of the early Joe versus Cobra things, and I wanted to get the O-ring treatment because they went from having the O-ring articulation to T-crotch
Yeah.
articulation. So they didn't have all the same movement. And some of those early ones, like the Neo Viper and Cobra Claws and Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, they got retooled into the O-ring format. But then a bunch of Cobra Commander did, but then a bunch of them didn't. The Cobra Moray didn't. Heavy Duty and Gung Ho, Frostbite, Wetsuit, none of them did. And Wetsuit would have been great. Wetsuit's my first favorite choice out of that first series. I mean,
I
the
really
design
like
for
that wetsuit
Wetsuit,
figure.
yeah,
It's
he's really
kind of a
cool.
science fictiony version, and it.
Yes. In fact, I would go so far as to say it's very sci-fi. He had a lot of it's real involved dive suit on. It had a lot of intricacy in the sculpt, a lot of pieces, but like
Yeah.
he had like these pipes coming out of it, and it was like a full suit of armor. I mean, obviously you could see that he had a body glove or a wetsuit underneath it, but he
Yeah.
had all this armor that just it was a completely different look for the character, and it was a completely awesome, eye-catching look for the character. And
This
I
line,
was
this line was really weird because I mean it was a transition year for GI Joe, and like you
it
were saying,
was
because there was T crotches and there was ones that were the the slit waist. So I mean, it wasn't quite a T crotch; it was more of a V crotch, but it still had the weird, the shitty hip articulation. But then there was still some O-ring figures smattered in and out of there.
well, here's okay. What happened was, all right. Initially, this relaunch for GI Joe was the first time in a long time. No, I take that back. The Real American Hero Collection, which was all repaints of vintage Joes, that did run for a couple years in the stores, and it was 2 packs of figures
Yeah.
with a lot of new characters. But I would say it was a glorified placeholder before Hasbro decided how they wanted to reintroduce G.I. Joe in a big way. And so, but it along with it came a lot of merchandise and a lot of different art and a lot of different, like, there was a lot of energy that they put into it. The initial GI Joe lineup was Duke, Frostbite, Heavy Duty, Wetsuit, and Gung Ho. And the initial Cobra lineup was Cobra Commander, Destro, the Cobra Moray, the Neo Viper, and the Cobra Claws. And people, for the most part, except for Duke, well, Destro was a little funky too. When I say a little funky, I mean
that's a weird Destro.
he, his mask is weird. It's kind of robotic looking, but like his ears, his fleshy ears, are not covered by the mask,
Right.
and the mask itself has this growly, constipated look to it, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah, and I'd say it's a good way to describe.
I would say the most memorable thing from that very first series of G.I. Joe versus Cobra is the art. The file card art, and those little fold out like comic panel. No, it was like a mini comic, but it folded out. And the art was really cool. And the character designs were really cool. Some of them were very different from what we'd seen before. This was the first, I mean, Gung Ho, basically, he had a cap on, but he had like a full fatigue suit. And I mean, he was cool. He had a goatee and whatever, but it was
Moon Boots Flint.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. The new Sculpt era of G.I. Joe gets a lot of shit for wonky proportions.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, no. Bad proportions.
Bad proportions.
And some really wonky.
Because you just need to look at that Frostbite and you know something ain't right with that guy.
Yeah.
He's got a belt up around his lower chest, and he's all legs, and his torso just looks like somebody had squished it together. And then a lot of the guys like Stalker and Cobra Commander, they've been skipping leg day, and they're just bulky.
Yeah, they're okay. That toy line did, like I said, proportion problems. Yeah, some of them are a little bit showy. They're a little bit exaggerated.
But the Snake Eyes version 14, that's a fantastic figure.
That was the one that he's all purple. He's purple, or he's all gray with purple highlights, right?
No, that's 13, I think. It's a recoloring. It's that, but all in black and silver.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot they did that one. Yeah, that was cool.
I really like that sculpt. I used that sculpt a lot customizing when I first started, because these were the figures that were on the shelves at the stores when I first started customizing. So, I mean, I was still doing O-ring stuff, getting it off eBay, but this is what was at retail. So this was what was easily at hand. So a lot of these were my first figures that I cut my teeth on customizing.
Well, and like every new launch of G.I. Joe, I bought it all of it. I bought all of it. There may have been a vehicle or two that I missed, but I bought all of it. Initially, when they were showing off, people liked the designs. They did not like the figures. The reduced articulation was weird. The proportions were weird, but they did not. Nobody ever complained that the designs were ugly. They complained that the figures were ugly.
Yeah.
But so what happened was, after the fans initially lashed out at Hasbro, because they're basically, why of all things to change, why take out the O-ring? Because it just felt like change for the sake of change. And I just can't believe that nobody at Hasbro. No, I take it back. Maybe there were people at Hasbro that weren't happy about the articulation change, but I have to imagine that somebody at Hasbro had to have understood or had to have expected that people were not necessarily going to take kindly to the change. And so what they did was, after the outcry, they shipped the first wave, and then they filled in. They pushed back the release of the next series, and they took a bunch more O-ring Joes, classic vintage, and they repainted them in some truly astoundingly different color schemes.
That's a gentle way
And
of putting that.
what?
That's a gentle way of putting that, yes.
Yeah. I mean, but a lot of times it wasn't. That's not a bad thing. But they had a set with like Big Ben and Mirage, and they had a set with like General Hawk and somebody. I don't know. But so what they did was they did this whole series as a placeholder. So they took a lot of molds that were easily accessible, and with some of the copyright, the trademarks for the code names that they still had active, and they put them out while they bought themselves some time, completely re-engineering the follow-up Joe versus Cobra series, which was going to include Stalker, Zartan, Dusty, Scarlet, Firefly, Nunchuck, and I cannot remember who, Blowtorch, I believe.
Ah.
Blowtorch was really cool. He was he was in green and bronze, and he looked nothing like version 1. He was 100% improvement looks wise over version 1, but he had a ridiculous sculpt and terrible proportions.
Yeah.
But while they bought themselves some time completely redoing that line of figures to include the O-ring, so they had to sculpt basically the whole everything from mid torso down had to get resculpted, and what came out after, again, some really cool, interesting designs, not still not great figures because they had a different set of problems. But starting with Wave 1, we want to talk about our favorites. We're gonna just, I don't know, maybe pick 2 from each that maybe that we thought, even if, and we're just, at least for me, I'm going to ignore the articulation problem, and I'm just going to name the figures that I think looked the coolest.
All right, yeah.
So
like half a dozen out of the 2003 or the 2002.
Yeah. So so yeah, to start out with,
I'll pick one.
Okay. To start out with, I really liked the design for Cobra Commander. Until that point, that actually, with the jacket, with the big collar and everything, and I liked the armored boots he had on. That was actually, for a long time, my favorite costume design for Cobra Commander. And of the even once he was re-engineered with the O-ring, the proportions were still weird. But I always wanted them to go back and make a better proportioned version of that same costume, but it never happened. But yet, for just being another Cobra Commander, it was one that I felt was a really refreshing design.
I think my first pick, just looking at these, I've got Yojo pulled up. I'm looking at the 2002 page because off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you who was in what year after. I mean, hell, I have a hard time remembering who's in what year in the Real American Hero series half the time. I'm usually a year off.
Yeah, but I'm a really big nerd, so
Yeah, I'm usually within a year or two off. Um, I what grabs me looking at these pictures and kind of flashing back to when I started buying Joe's again, because this is when I jumped into buying Joe's again too, not only just customizing but collecting as well. Uh, was that Cobra More? Um, it it did have the it had the huge belt, but I mean you can kind of forgive that as like a weighted dive belt. And he's got really like I said, a lot of these guys have been skipping leg day at the gym, and it shows because he's got a huge upper proportioned body and the really skinny legs. But to me, it looks. I like both versions that came out. There's a black and kind of purple and gray one, and then there's like a gray and orangish red. I guess is kind of the best way to describe that color. And they're it has that we talked about how wetsuit has that kind of futuristic look to it. Um, this is a futuristic looking at Cobra Eel, and I really like it. It's to me when I was kind of like world building when these were coming out. You had the Cobra Eels were like the Cobra Vipers to me, and then the Cobra Mores were like the next step up. So you had your basic troopers, and those were Cobra Eels, and then when you were good enough to promote, you could promote up to Cobra More.
No, and see, I always looked at them as they are eels, but um, I mean, out of universe, it was definitely a trademark problem. But in universe, I always just looked at it as um, they are the Cobra eels, but um, for whatever reason, Cobra Commander decided to reclassify them and um, maybe make it a more elite unit um, because, um, yeah, he was trying to. And I always thought maybe he was for once in his life trying a quality over quantity idea. So he
Yeah,
upgrades all their suits, so there's fewer of them, but he thinks they're going to be badass. But it turns out GI Joe kicks their asses anyways. So eventually he went back to the eels, but maybe I don't know.
yeah.
But
Go
and
with
then my other favorite, honestly, I already it's wetsuit, and it's just the look of him. He's just really cool looking.
yeah. It is a cool looking figure.
So
I'm not going to be able to pick two here. I'm sorry. There are for as goofy as these figures are, and they are goofy, but um, one of the one of the problems we've talked about some of the problems that we've had with proportions in this particular line, and it's been big chests and skinny legs. There is another fatal flaw that a lot of these figures suffer from in the proportion, and that's the tiny heads. And unfortunately, I think that
yeah,
the tiny head really killed what was. I really liked the Agent Scarlet, the one that looks it's the color scheme for the classic version. Baroness is not too bad. I liked her as well, but they both had tiny heads. But the one that I was going to pick, again, that suffers from tiny head, but I still really like the figure, is the version 6 Cobra Snow Serpent. Uh,
definitely proportion. Well,
yeah, the proportions the it is kind of bulky in the arms and the legs, but again, you can overlook that just due to the fact that he's wearing cold weather gear. But the head is just horribly underproportioned. But it's a
well,
nicely sculpted figure. I love the dry brushing on that he's got on the sorry, dry throat. Um, the dry brushing that he's got on the fur on his forearms and his foreleg on his legs, and the cape that he came with was the cloak that he came with was fantastic. I think, and the file card art is beautiful.
well, that's why I said a lot of times with these, even if the figures were flawed, the art was not a problem. They had a lot of really cool designs.
That is one of
Sometimes
the things
those,
that sold this line for me was the. Sorry, I had to go get a. It's what time is it? It's 9:21. I'm having a Red Bull. Is the for as much as I am a fan of the artwork that was the Real American Hero series, this was different. I won't say it's better, but it was on the same quality. It was just
yeah, it was.
a different style, but it still had that fantastic vibe, that fantastic feel to me that made it GI Joe. It's like, okay, I've got this crappy figure, but I have this beautiful artwork that I can picture when I'm playing with this figure, and it works. That's what a lot of that art did for me as a kid, especially on some of the crappier figures, was the art was just beautiful. It took my imagination where it needed to go to overcome the flaws with the figures, and the art that was in this line did that.
Well, and if anything, um, if I if I ignore the obvious problems, if anything, my biggest hangup often came with the fact that you had this really cool art, because basically it's a little bit comic book style, it's a little bit
Yeah,
anime, it's a little
yeah,
bit, but it's
it's
really eye
different.
catching. But
Yeah,
a lot of times the designs of the characters from head to toe in that art did not translate well to the figures.
no,
And maybe the figures, maybe they weren't intended to replicate the art. Maybe the art was done afterwards. Maybe it was just the artist decided, well, I'm going to do something different. I don't know, but I wish, like Frostbite, that art
yes,
is really awesome. He's holding the pistol out. He's got this. It's such cool art, and then the
that
actual
figure.
figure is just fucking
Sure.
goofy.
Yeah,
Um,
go with another
and
go pick another figure there.
well, and like Heavy Duty in the file card art, he is massive.
He is.
He is giant, and he's got like a minigun. He's got the sleeves rolled up, and like the boots are tall, and he is huge. And then
I think
the
this is one
actual
where the
figure,
creepy proportions actually work for it.
no, you're right, it did. Unfortunately, while the big burly proportions were part of everybody's sculpt, that took away from the impact of Heavy Duty. Plus, again, the details were wonky on the figure. Like, he had long sleeves and he looked quite uncomfortable, and he has a look on his face that said, where he's berating himself, saying, "Wow, I'm just not as cool as my art."
I mean,
Where Duke,
this is one of
well,
those weird figures that I cannot for the life of me remember, but there was a real famous black bodybuilder in the 80s, and I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. But this is what I imagine that, like this guy, like that bodybuilder in an action figure form, aside from the legs. But it's killing me. I can't remember that guy's name, but
well,
it's so reminiscent of that bodybuilder that it just
yeah, because again,
because
if you look at
he's
the
overdeveloped, and it
well,
works.
I actually wonder sometimes when the artists were drawing these things, what kind of inspiration they took. It's entirely possible that maybe that particular person, other than Schwarzenegger, folks, I can't name anybody who's a bodybuilder, so I have no idea. But um, it's entirely possible that maybe that particular maybe it did have some influence on what the artist did. The only time the art in that first series I think fell down was Duke, because he's got sunglasses on, which the figure doesn't, and he's kind of he's green from head to toe. And even when I got those figures in 2002, I thought, well, why the hell didn't they just make him grunt? I understood why they didn't, because Duke is a more recognizable character and a more recognizable avatar for the line. But the design is basically so very grunt that I just kind of wish it had been. But I mean, that's the first series. we
Uh,
can move on
no,
to
I got a couple more.
the
I got at least one. I got one more that I got to throw in here, and that's the version 5 shipwreck. The proportions are not bad. He's in the kind of the what's technically called a watch sweatshirt or a sweater, um, with the like shoulder holster and gray like fatigue pants. It's a very nice figure. It's a very nice update for shipwreck.
All right. Well, first of all, he was in a later series, and I hadn't gotten there yet.
Uh,
Second of all,
See,
well,
I'm looking at one. I don't have them in the series. I'm looking at
oh,
pictures.
that's true. You don't. But well, okay. Here's what Shipwreck had going for it. At the same time, or around the same time, Devil's Due Press, they got the license to make GI Joe comics, and so they started an all new continuity, bringing back a lot of characters, and basically resetting the whole thing. They did officially, they did. It was a follow up to the Marvel line. So the G.I. Joe team had been defunct for years, and then they opened the pit back up. They reorganized the team, and that's where the book started.
Right.
But early on, Shipwreck, it became apparent that Shipwreck was going to be an important character in the book. And so on the cover of Devil's Due G.I. Joe #1, Shipwreck is there, even though he was never, his use in the cartoon was, he was so overused. I mean, he was used so extensively in the cartoon, it would be easy to mistake him as being a core character, even though
Yes.
he wasn't. He never really was. But in this new Sculpt line, he's got the sweater and the watch cap. Well, that's what the Devil's Due design looked like. It almost looked like the comic book character had some influence on the figure. And as a design for Shipwreck, I did think it was cool. It was modern looking. He didn't have the Dixie Cup hat or the dungarees on anymore. But it was an interesting and good. It was a change for the better for Shipwreck.
And that's it's not a watch. You're right. It's a watch cap. It's a commando sweater that he's wearing.
Yeah. So you know what? He was essentially
my uniform when I was working on the street.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he's got a commando sweatshirt or sweater on, and I mean, the sculpting on the figure was cool. It had all the lines for the fabric pattern and everything, and it was a good figure. Around, let's see, in that same year, they introduced a new character named Dart. He was a tracker. He had, his uniform was green from head to toe. It was a little bit more like World War II Vietnam style. It wasn't modern looking like a lot of the costumes in that line were, but he definitely made for a memorable new character. And I was a big fan of that character straight out of the gate because, again, I always got excited when there was new blood in the roster for G.I. Joe. I always got excited when a new character was introduced, and his was cool. I mean, his file name is Jimmy Tall Elk. He's from Minnesota. I mean, it actually specifically says on his file card, he was an Ojibwe Native American. That was his tribe, and it was cool to see. It was cool to see that kind of research put into some of these new characters. So, Stalker was a good idea, with a little bit odd. The bright green vest was okay, but there was no question. Hey, look, that's Stalker. Okay. Firefly, same thing. The Firefly figure that was released that year was a cool design. It was a little bit different, but not too. It wasn't too crazy. So yeah, that stuff was well done. Like Brian said, Scarlet, the design was nifty. In fact, if anything, Well, the file card art was really well done,
It was.
but it was another case of the figure was so wonky proportion wise and articulation wise. A lot of what I think, see, I always liked the card art, and it always bothered me that the figure came out with big hands, really long legs, and a teeny tiny head sculpt, and like real wide. Yeah, like the shape, the whole shape was all wrong on most of these. In fact, if anything, Dusty is plain realistic looking compared to all the rest of them
Yeah.
in that. But
Yeah, I mean her breasts are bigger than her head on that.
yeah, that was very very comic booky. It was like, again, the art's really cool. Here's I just realized something. Um, I hadn't actually considered it before, but everything that Hasbro did right with the 6-inch classified Scarlet, I just realized that sculpt that they did is very reminiscent of that art from the G.I. Joe versus Cobra version of Scarlet, where she's got a lot of intricate detail. No, not the same details, but I feel like she's geared up and she's kind of badass, ready to kick some ass with a lot of layers on the uniform. And I feel like the initial idea for that was all the way back in 2002, where you got a cool new design and a terrible figure. I feel like the classified Scarlet actually did it properly.
One of the things I liked about the file art is that really disappointed me in the figure is, as a customizer, it's hard to get unique and nice female sculpted heads, and especially hair. And I really liked the art on Scarlet. I would have loved to had that particular art in a head to use for customs because it's very nicely drawn.
The figure itself, she had like a French braid on the head sculpt, and I thought that was really cool. I like that idea for Scarlet, but again, the head was so tiny that it fucked it all up. The um, the Destro figure, no, I think he came out the next year. He had a black turtleneck on, and he had like red trousers on.
Yeah, that's 2003. I figured we get
okay. Yeah, so it was, but that one had the same brand new design for Destro, really cool looking, tiniest fucking head ever. While for picking favorites, I can overlook the articulation. For these, I just can't help but look at the art more than the figures, because a lot of times the figures themselves, I just flash back to looking at them in the store and just thinking, well, it's a good thing this is G.I. Joe because I have to buy it. But if I actually looked at the figure itself, I'm like, I don't know. Some of them, the Snow Serpent was interesting. Like you said, a lot of detail painted onto it, and that was really cool.
And the art on that is fantastic too.
And then right alongside them, they brought out a new version of Dr. Mindbender.
I was going to mention that.
It was a lot. The first version, it's purple and gray, and he's got a cape on, like the original Mindbender, but he's got kind of like an open collared imp shirt on, and I mean he's very stylish. I mean I think he's got like the Cobra medallion or something. He no longer looked like like a circus type performer. Now he looked more like a professional wrestler than. In any case, neither design of Dr. Mindbender, the original from '86 or this one. I've never been able to buy that he's an orthodontist turned mad scientist because he just looks like a wrestler, and that's okay. Except that if you didn't see his dialogue if you didn't read his dialogue in the comic, or you didn't hear the dialogue from the cartoon, it would be understandable if you just never got any sort of science vibe anywhere from Dr. Mindbender.
Right.
But the Joe versus Cobra Dr. Mindbender, again, say what you will about the look, but the figure was cool, and it went back to the basics.
I think the last one that I've got for 2002, because I really want to move on to 2003, is the version 7 Storm Shadow. It's got the T-crotch. He's white with black and gray, and again, that really, it's almost the same red that's on that moire. It's kind of a reddish orange, or orange red, and it works. It's a weird color combination, but it works. I don't know why, but I really like that version of Storm Shadow. The white, the gray, and the red with the
black. Actually, it's cool. No, I didn't have to look it up. I was looking up the repaints they did because there was one that was like gray.
Yeah, I don't like the as much.
Okay.
It has the red, but it's muted.
Yeah. Storm Shadow was one that went back and they gave it the O-ring treatment. Like I believe, right? Yeah. I felt like that design for Storm Shadow just never really did anything for me.
See, I felt it was kind of like a modernish update, and I liked it.
It was, and I just felt like, instead of being, they ended up repainting that figure later as a couple of other ninjas, and I always liked it better than as Storm Shadow. I don't know why. There's no good reason for it, but I always ended up liking the other versions better.
You got any more good picks from 2002? Let's talk about 2003.
Yeah, let's talk about 2003 because 2003. 2003. It brings an end to the subline G.I. Joe versus Cobra, and it brings in the theme that year for Spy Troops, where the Joes come with Cobra armor parts to take on enough. It can definitely be debated how effective it was when they wore the armor. Okay, no, it can't. It wasn't effective at all. But it was a nifty idea.
Yeah.
But what we had already seen with the new Sculpt line up until that point, they took what was already working and they exploded with creativity outwards.
Absolutely.
The character selection got an adrenaline injection, and it was good.
Phenomenal would be my.
The
first one that grabs me right off the top is Blackout. I mean, we talked about them for a couple of minutes earlier in the show, and this is where we got our first Blackout figure. The face is horribly sculpted. It just,
he's a little doofy looking.
Yeah, he's kind of got this, like, you look at the guy's face, you can see why he's a sociopath. It's like, if I looked that ugly, I'd probably be sociopathic too. But this is the concept that they brought into G.I. Joe with the backstory between him and Barrel Roll and Bomb Strike, and it's a decent figure. The weapons were kind of shit for what he was, but it was a great figure.
Well, Blackout for me, when I got that, I remember I found that set at Toys R Us in Lawton, Oklahoma, because I had left Post because I had to go to Walmart, because I had to go G.I. Joe shopping, because I saw on Joe Customs that the new The new figures were hitting the stores, so I went and I bought the 2-pack with the semi Night Force ish Flint and Blackout. And I bought the set for Blackout because Flint not only had it was not only a repaint of the absolutely ungodly ridiculous Joe versus Cobra thing. That Flint figure was the epitome of every random problem that the new Sculpt line had.
Yeah.
Teeny tiny head, super skinny, super long arms, really squat torso, teeny tiny waist, really giant long legs, and these absolutely ridiculous boots. But they repainted it all in green and black and brown, and and then they packaged him with Blackout. And the only problem Blackout had was the head sculpt, and I don't think it lasted more than a day before I took the head off of a Duke figure from 2002, the first version they did without the helmet on.
Yeah.
And I went and I went over to the PX and I went to the craft section. They had some acrylic paints, and I got home. I took the head off Duke, painted the hair red, put it on Blackout. From then on, Blackout was perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, even back then, I've always had this problem. I can't leave well enough alone in my collection. If something on the figure bothers me, I will fix it. And that is exactly what I did. I fixed it. He was perfect. Otherwise, he was a sniper. He was all black with silver highlights, and there's that really eye catching. He just, the head sculpt, but Blackout he's a phenomenal character that had he not played a significant role in the comic book for a while, the Devil's Due comic for a while, I think he would have been overlooked, and that would have been too bad. But yeah, he's awesome. So
I think the next you're talking perfect figures, and there are I'm going to say there's at least 3 or 4 what I would consider perfect figures in this line during this particular wave, this particular year. And that first one is Chief Torpedo in the BDUs.
Yep, the very first land uniform Navy SEAL that they put out in the Joe line.
The color scheme is nice. The sculpt is fantastic. The proportions are very nice. I like that he's got the land map strapped to his left leg there, so he's clearly a point man. Got the watch cap. Everything about this figure is nice. I think I don't remember they tried to do a Drager rebreather and they didn't do it very well. He came with an M16 that didn't have a stock, but it had an M203 and it was scoped. It was kind of weird. I didn't really like the accessories that came with this line, and then of course he had the sound attack gun still. A lot of these guys came with sound attack stuff. But
because that gimmick, even though they changed the name of the subline, I forgot the sound attack gimmick. I forgot they did continue that for a while.
Yeah. So I mean, I think even when you have these fantastic figures, I think all of them fell short on accessories, and I think that's where Marauder Inc. really got there. I mean, it was like a boost of wind in their sales just starting out, because you had these fantastic figures, but they all had shitty weapons, and yet here's Marauder Gunrunners with fantastic weapons to go with these nice new GI Joes, because we saw a couple of nice Joes from 2002. A lot of them were just goofy, and a lot of them were shitty, but hey, we're getting new GI Joes. And then 2003 comes along, and it's like, wow, these Joes are fantastic. These are nice figures. But their accessories are shit. And that to me is a hallmark of what G.I. Joe was as a kid is the accessories that came with these figures. And then Marauder Inc., Marauder Gunrunner at the time, is like, here, we'll take care of that for you. Here's some realistic weapons for your nice new figures. And that was a boost for them as well as collectors and kids. Well, maybe not kids, but definitely a boost for GI Joe fans, because you could scrap the shit that these guys came with and give them nice weapons.
Um, one of my earliest choices that year for one of my favorites was Overkill. Overkill existed in the vintage line. He was the battle android trooper leader, but he was all robot, so he was all android. There was nothing remotely human about the sculpt. Like, it left no doubt that he was all robot.
I thought he was cyborg. I thought he had a human head.
No. I'm talking about the original, the Talking Battle Commander in the gold. Yeah, there was no question that thing was pure robot from head to toe. It was artificial intelligence. The Overkill that came out in the Spy Troops line was almost fully armored with a padded uniform and a human-looking face with a large, like, face covering. Basically, it was like the original Cobra Troopers, but it draped down over the shoulders, and he had a helmet on. So really, the only thing that could be seen clearly was his eyes and the skin around his eyes. But that thing left no doubt that, his arm detached and had like a knife or something, and I think there was a gun that attached too. It left no doubt that this was not the original Overkill. This guy was a cyborg. It took a lot of design cue from, there's some anime influence in there. There's some. I always got like a weird Universal Soldier type vibe from it. Like, this guy had gotten severely fucked up before, and he had a lot of parts that were replaced with future tech. So,
like if the $6 million man had been a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's entirely possible that underneath all that padding and armor, he may have been more machine than man, like certain other pop culture icons. But there was a little bit of a RoboCop vibe. You could definitely tell that. I always imagine that if he took the wrap off, maybe he didn't have artificial skin over the whole thing. Yeah. Maybe it was like a Terminator.
Yes.
But like, I always imagine that if he didn't have the mask over his, even if he did have a full face, he'd smile and you'd still see the silver teeth. Because he's not human and he's not robot. Yeah, he was a
cyborg.
Absolutely phenomenal update to a character that until then had never done anything for me. Yeah. And it was available in 2 different color schemes, so you could pick the one you liked the best. I liked the one that was teal with blue, but there was a purple and like white version too. It was a whole different look.
Well, there was like a tan version. There was a tan with black and like a 2-tone tan and black, and then there was like a black and teal with red.
Yeah. But
they're both nice. I think to me the tan one is kind of like a desert color, but the like almost battle core green and red looks really nice with that black.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I'm looking at Overkill version 2. You're right. I was thinking the teal arm, the teal padding with the blue, or like dark blue armor. You're right. He's all teal and black, but he's he's super cool looking. And yeah, there was just man, that figure really well. And somebody at Hasbro liked it. Uh, they must have thought it was a success because I want to say a year later, or maybe it was the same year, there was a mail away set of the vintage Battle Android Trooper version 2 in two different color schemes. And it included a repaint of the Talking Battle Commander Overkill
Yeah,
that was all robot, but
the
he had the
battle
same color scheme as Cyborg Overkill.
Bat
And again,
Army building internet exclusive.
yeah, yeah, that was it. There was Battle Android Troopers in
There was
black, silver, and yellow, and then there was one that was translucent red.
Yeah.
Which they called, I want to say the Inferno Bat. Basically, they were walking bombs. But that Overkill, which was again pure robot, just like the original, had that black and teal sort of color scheme, but with the red, faceplate to rep. So I mean, it was interesting at least. But yeah, God, I really love that version of Overkill.
All right, my next one is it's not as perfect to me as the Torpedo figure, and that's Crosshair, but then they repainted it in more of a realistic military fashion and nailed it. I mean, the first one's not bad, don't get me wrong, but the second one is beautiful, and that Crosshair is a fantastic addition to the GI Joe team. The sculpt is nice. He's wearing kind of that like half vest with a looks like a commando sweater underneath, with like green fatigues, and then the repaint was really really dark olive drab, and it was, there's no other word to use but uniform, and it looks really nice.
Agreed. Well, and he was
No, great. I'm sorry, it was
well,
great.
And
he came with the vest and like a ghillie suit. Again, a belt. Again, the weapons were kind of shit. He came with the M16, M203. The sniper rifle was just this, like,
it's a hunting rifle, not a sniper rifle.
It's not even the hunting rifle. It's like this wet noodle piece of gun, and it's horrible. Like I said, a lot of and he came with a removable boonie cap, which was fantastic. This is one of the figures that I used a lot in customs when I first started. Him and Torpedo I bought a bunch of those when I first started.
Well, here's the cool thing about Crosshair. On the file card, it says, it actually says infiltrator and sniper.
Yeah.
Unlike Lowlight, the original was Night Spotter. My favorite version, version 3, was a Night Fighter.
Yes.
But they weren't allowed to put sniper on the package. But now this one, it says Crosshair is a sniper, and that's cool. And I agree, that figure was fantastic. He's one that I kind of forget about
really
sometimes.
Like the soft goods ghillie suit. That was a really neat addition for a figure like that, and it really kind of expanded what you could do in customizing as well.
True. He was Crosshair, again, new blood, all new character. Yeah, it was well done. So yeah, my next choice for that year, absolutely weird as absolutely weird as it might sound, I really liked the character of Depth Charge. Yes, the figure is in a head-to-toe wetsuit, like most of the SEALs were, but there was something about this one that really distinguished it from like wetsuit and whatever. Like he was less military looking and more kind of in the adventure team type vibe. But I kept looking at it and I kept feeling like if he had included any of uh if he had included like similar armor to what Joe versus Cobra wetsuit had, um I think it would have been I think it would have made like a perfect like diving figure. I mean, he's in blue and white. It's not particularly military, but it was cool looking. And he came with like a Cobra helmet for a disguise, and he had the same breather apparatus chest piece, I think, that Torpedo did. But Depth Charge as a character just did something for me. And that character stuck with me for a long time. So much so that when I was making my Sigma 6 customs, Depth Charge was on that list of characters that I made. Something about it was just awesome. Plus,
When he was
he came
one of
packaged
the deluxe figures, he came with
like
like
a jet ski or
no,
something.
was that the jet ski or was it kind of like a kind of reminiscent
No,
of
it's
the
like,
Cobra underwater sled? I can't remember what it. And then they repainted it in
yeah.
orange and gray, which were weird colors, but it
Well,
looked nice.
and see, I was going to say, I like the repaint with the gray and the orange even more.
Yeah.
That one was from 2005, but was that was the version that I ripped off for my Sigma 6 design,
Uh,
but all the way back to the first one again, and that the awesome orange and gray version wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for the first one. And for some reason, the first one just I don't know, the figures worked on every level for me. The proportions were good. He didn't skip leg day. All of it from head to toe was really awesome looking, and yeah, he was just a sweet new character.
and I think
So
this is one of the
yeah,
first figures that I used for like a dive suit seal.
yeah.
I remember my first torpedo custom was O-ring, but this is like one of my first new sculpt dive suit seal customs that I remember making that I was really happy with. Let me see who I'm going to go with next. All right, I'm really torn on talking about this Destro, but I think we'll come back to him because I really want to hit the ones that I really liked. And this is a weird figure, and it not many people remember it. And for the life of me, I can't see why they didn't redo this one in the 25th anniversary line. And I certainly can't see, well, I can see why they didn't do it in the figure subscription service, but I think it would have, if they'd had the tooling to make a new one, would have been a fantastic addition to a wave in the figure subscription service. And that's Heavy Water.
Ah, yes.
Talk about a futuristic underwater assault trooper. He is in like he's got a like black body glove wetsuit, and then this like is that I wouldn't quite call it teal. It's almost not quite neon light
Oh,
light
it's turquoise, but
turquoise.
it's
There you go.
awesome.
Turquoise body armor with like heavy gloves, but they're like gauntlets, um, and
Well,
and armor on his legs, and then he's got a backpack that has six tubes that come off of it, and they plug into two into his helmet, two into his arms, and two into his legs. It is a really fantastic figure.
yeah.
And again, suffered from the accessories that came with this were just shit.
I'm actually looking them up right now. Yeah, lots of generic. Yeah. Um,
I
Oh
mean,
yeah, in
that
fact,
recoils pistol or um,
ambush.
ambush. Thank you, ambush's pistol, and I've seen that
The
rifle. That rifle is based on an actual weapon. Um,
yeah, depth charge came with it too.
yeah,
Same
it's based on an
same
actual weapon that's designed
harpoon gun.
to fire wet. So I mean, that's actually a real gun, but it just the guns in this were horrible. And the card art is just fantastic. I'm just the only thing I don't like about this card art and from the previous year is how small it is. It just doesn't get the. It's so eye catching and so popping, and it's just like thumbnails on the on these
Yeah,
packaging. It
it
just
is.
doesn't get the justice that it
Yeah, it's.
deserves.
I'll say it's hard to find full size, high resolution versions of that art. Um,
Well, I mean,
but
just even
yeah,
on
he's
packaging when they came out, I think was kind of I won't call it a failing, but it's just like the art was fantastic enough to stand alone on its own for full front card.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
So yeah,
Um,
heavy water uh, is the one I'm going to go with there.
that's a good choice.
And I found mine. I found mine the other day digging through, trying to clean up my customizing area, and I'm like, I was going to make a custom using this figure, and I just couldn't figure out anything to do with it, so I just kept it, and I found it. So
um,
just happy to,
I don't have the figure anymore, but I wish I did. Um,
and I
yeah,
think
heavy water.
find.
Um,
So I remember having a hard time getting it when I did get that.
yeah, because he came in a 2-pack with heavy duty, and it was the first. It was because Joe versus Cobra Heavy Duty never got the O-ring. The yeah, he never got the revised O-ring articulation. Instead, they went with just a different design for a new sculpt, but it wasn't as effective. But I think it was supposed to be some kind of joke that Heavy Water was included in the same 2-pack with Heavy Duty,
Uh,
but they were so they were such an odd matchup that in no way did it make any sense. It wasn't justified in any
I think
way.
a lot of the matchups in the packaging didn't just make sense. That was
Well,
one of the things I hated about this line is I would have to buy a figure that I absolutely detested to get the figure that I wanted.
well, and see, here's the thing: is they'd write a line on the file card that was supposed to fill in some story for why those particular characters were paired up,
Yeah,
but a lot of times it still just felt random, and that was
I'm
one
sure
of
it was.
them. Um,
I'm sure it
but
was.
heavy But I mean, Heavy. Well, yeah, yeah, he's a cool figure that really never got a lot of fanfare. Maybe it deserved it. No, no, I take that back. Maybe it should have because it definitely deserved it. But you know what? In fact, I would go so far as to say Heavy Water. I would just call it a hidden gem
Yes,
because it is.
absolutely.
It's really an excellent figure that just is completely forgotten about, completely ignored.
And that's yeah. I and I'm the same way. And it took me a long time to track one of these down, and I got one, and I was happy. And then it didn't occur to me that that's one they should have retooled for the 25th anniversary line.
Well, and even if they had, it would have been woefully underwhelming.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe.
but well, the cool thing was with the backpack, with the hoses and stuff hanging off of it. Yes, they did plug in to the armor on the figure, but unlike a lot of times where they'll have a cord thing, it'll be like there'll be like a janky quality control where it's a little brittle or a little too rigid, but not in this case. Like they found the perfect consistency,
Yeah,
so the hoses were never going to rip once you connected them. Yeah, it was a well done figure. And see, that's one that even I forget about sometimes because
absolutely.
it's just so it's just, you know what, that's just one that is just completely lost to time, I
Yeah,
think.
it never it was just this one version. It never got any. It was never in the cartoon. It was never in a cartoon. It was never in a comic book. It
Yeah, I was going to say, of the many random toys from this line that did show up in the art for the comics, yeah, I don't think the Heavy Water Troopers ever did.
no.
Um,
It never went anywhere, and so
no,
yeah, I think it just vanished into the
oh,
dust. It should
yep,
not have because it's a fantastic figure.
yep. Um, my next choice, no, my last, no, second to last choice, fine. My last choice is, um, God, I had so many of these guys at one time, and I don't have any of them now, and I really wish I had the Sand Viper.
I knew that's what you were gonna say.
The Sand Viper was armor from head to toe. Even the non even well, yeah, because he's got armor on. He's got armored gauntlets, armored leggings, armored shoulder thing. He's got it's the entire face is one plate of armor.
Yeah,
He doesn't have the body glove thing. No, he's just got more layers of armor, and the there's multiple versions of it in multiple color schemes because it was repainted a few times in colors that always worked. But the first one was all desert tan and gray, and it was fantastic. It's scary,
yes,
like it's legitimately scary looking.
yeah,
He's got these the mask doesn't even have human eyes showing. No, they're like he's covered from head to toe. The Sand Viper is an eye-catching figure, and it's imposing as all hell. And I don't know how they are not held in much higher regard as they are, because honestly, um, for the people that are younger than us, that were younger than us when these were out, maybe they were just teenagers or kids when these were coming out, that still, he does get a lot of praise from the people that were fans. Unfortunately, I just don't understand how a trooper this cool has been completely ignored by the modern um, by the modern audience. Like the club didn't make a new one. Um, Hasbro didn't make a new one. I see very few customs. My favorite ones are the ones that Sean Grogan did,
yeah.
where he repainted the parts and he did the various different color schemes, but he doesn't get the Sand Vipers are completely, utterly ignored. And honestly, I think as troopers that feel fresh and look amazing, you you've got a big thing for the alley vipers, the night vipers. We both like the techno vipers. I
Yeah.
think the Sand Viper is every bit as excellent uh, as a Cobra Trooper design as they are. It was just released in tragically the wrong era.
Yeah.
If it had been released much earlier, or anything even close to it had been in the vintage line, or if they had ever updated it in the modern style and made a new release of it, maybe it would be held in with more uh, revelry. But unfortunately, yeah, it. I
I
would
think it was
say
one of the
the Sandbite.
first figures that they actually that it had a helmet too that came with it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
And
you're
it
right.
had
It
night
had a
vision goggles in it. So I mean, it was
yeah,
one of the first helmets that I can remember that had like that current generation of night vision.
yeah,
Sorry, um, like the first Joe that you could get with like a real night vision helmet. The weapon he came with was it's based again on a real gun, and I can't remember what it is. It's really flimsy, and it's overscaled for what it is. I didn't really like it. And then it came with a lizard that I completely forgot about as well.
Um, the second Sand Viper is almost an inverse color scheme of the original. So it works just as well as the Desert Trooper. Um, and then there was an all black and super dark red repaint.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a hell trooper. Plus it maintained the red eyes and they're fucking awesome. And then they repainted it in black and gold.
Yes.
So it looked like an Iron Grenadier, and I had two of those, and because I thought they were cooler than the new Sculpt Arab design of the Iron Grenadier. And then finally, the last repaint was Cobra Blue and Gray, and it too is a gorgeous figure.
And it's funny you should say that, because I was just going to pick for my last one that Iron Grenadier, because that is a fantastic figure.
Oh no, I agree with you. I felt like when I got that Sand Viper, up until that point, I thought the Iron Grenadier was awesome. And then that Sand Viper came out, and I let it kick the ass out of my Iron Grenadiers because it was cooler.
Because there was the version 2, which was black with some silver and metallic blue highlights and a little bit of red. And it's okay. The sculpt is amazing. I love the sculpt on it. But the paint job on that first version, those colors you would think should work together very well, and they don't. I don't know what it is that doesn't work on it. They're using that reddish orange again that I had mentioned on the Storm Shadow and that first Moray. They really liked that shade of red, and I do too. But it just, I don't know. I don't like the color scheme on that first one, but that next one, that light gray with the light maroon and the gold accents and a little bit of black here and there, is just a beautiful figure. And he came with the helmet that had like some sort of crest sculpted into it. I always threw those things away because I thought they were shit, because it didn't need a helmet. And the helmet is kind of the quintessential, I won't say quintessential, but it's very iconic for an Iron Grenadier, but he doesn't need it.
Well,
and he's got a balaclava on, and he's got this like, you're a gnat's ass away from getting your ass kicked look on his face, and you can believe it because this guy looks badass.
Well, the one hang up that I really had with that version of the Iron Grenadier, and I had to hang up from the moment that I first saw it, and I realized that crest that was sculpted onto the helmet was a snake. That was when I realized that the Iron Grenadiers were no longer. I mean, obviously, within the toy line, Destro had gone back to Cobra for a very,
it still says Elite Trooper of Destro on the cards, though.
Yes, it does. But they are a lot closer because they had like the Cobra symbol. It was clearly they had pulled the Iron Grenadiers and merged them into Cobra in this version of the mythos. Sigma 6 came along and further differentiated the Iron Grenadiers again. They didn't. The Sigma 6 versions did not feel like they were Cobra like this one did. But I mean, it was a cool Iron Grenadier.
It came with the shoulder pads that had that snake sculpted on it too. I can see where you're.
Oh, that's right.
Why you wouldn't like that, but I mean, I do. Sculpting is kind of crappy, but it's as best as they could do at the time, I think. It's not bad, but I like it. I like those. I like the shoulder pads. I like the snake sculpted onto it. I don't care if
I like everything about it. I honestly, other than the snake because of my built-in bias against, because I never liked, in the old catalog images from 88 and 89, Hasbro was guilty of having Iron Grenadiers and Cobras all in the same shots. Boltar was often shown as being a commander to both, and I always liked them as separate factions, like a completely separate, entity from each other. But I could overlook it because I thought the Iron Grenadier, that sculpt, was cool. And I remember, okay, here's the thing. I have some kind of emotional attachment to this era of GI Joe. When I was in basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, um, every day we'd look forward to mail call. A lot of times I'd get stuff from home. A lot of my parents would send me stuff or whatever, and of course that's always welcome. But one day when I was in basic, I got an envelope. Like it was like a normal envelope, but it was really thick. All right, now my buddy BC Wendell, he's on my friends list for Facebook now. He sent me. He printed off the computer the images of these Spy Troops figures, the first wave, including the Iron Grenadier and Recondo, and Barrel Roll. He printed all of the news that was coming out about this line. He printed them up on his home printer, folded it up, put it in an envelope, and sent it to me so that I was still in the loop for G.I. Joe collecting, even when I was in training for the Army. So I remember opening this envelope up, and it was, in Pulp Fiction when they open the briefcase and there's that orange glow on their faces?
Yeah.
Pretty much opening this envelope containing pictures of new G.I. Joe figures that would be out in stores by the time I was finished with basic training. It was the same damn thing to me. In fact, all those years ago, I probably did say a proper thank you to BC for trying to keep me in the loop like he did, but I just need to re-emphasize it now. That was awesome. See, I have never been away from G.I. Joe for very long, ever. Training to possibly go to war someday could not keep my G.I. Joe fan at bay. But yeah, I remember seeing pictures of the Iron Grenadiers. I'm just like, oh, because up until that point, I never would have expected them to come back. I thought that it was just an idea that in the vintage line had come and gone.
Yeah.
And
then there's a couple other ones that I want to talk about for a minute before I forget. And unfortunately, these win the participation trophies for this year. And that's
yes.
Unfortunately, it's the female figures, because we've got a new Lady J that it's like, you tried, but not close enough. And then
every single proportion possible.
Zorana, which is, I never was a big fan of the first version of Zorana at all. I had her as a kid just because I had Xandar and I had Zartan, so I had to have her. But I really liked the biker chick look that they tried to give to Zorana. But again, the head is just way too small. The proportions are still wonky. It's like we've got some decent. They're still a little. The proportions are still a little off for this year, but not as bad as they were the last year. But they could not make a female figure to save a decent female figure to save their lives at this point in time. And then the last figure that I wanted to talk about, we talked about Pimp Daddy Destro on the last episode and the history behind that. But to me, this is what Pimp Daddy Destro looks like. He's wearing a skin-tight black shirt with a disco medallion cobra in silver medallion with these like tan but almost maroon pants. And then, he's built. The proportions are kind of weird on this, but you look at this guy and you're like, where's his swagger stick? The Destro went from pimping weapons to pimping hoes this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very 90s disco interesting look for Destro. Yes, yes, the turtleneck is, you know, and I don't even know if it's skin tight. It's fucking spandex. Like, it's true, like, spandex. The
Yeah,
dude is muscles on top of muscles.
he had to use some Vaseline to
Basically,
get that thing on.
basically, the voice that Arthur Burghardt gave to Destro in the cartoon can be clearly heard when you look at this version of Destro.
Yeah,
The
and
dude looks
for all those people
like,
that say you can hear a sound when you look at a figure, this is that one.
yeah, it's basically, um, he basically looks like the lead enforcer for, um, like, like a super technological version of the mafia. He's
I don't even. Yeah,
yeah,
I wouldn't even say
yeah,
that.
he
Just
did.
like lead enforcer for mafia, and you can leave it at that.
Yeah, he needs a stun stick or, you know, some kind of electric cattle prod weapon
I think
to
just
discipline his.
like a cane. I mean, just seriously, he needs
Yeah,
a swagger stick just to. He's so high up that he doesn't need a weapon. He just needs a cane to point at people and beat people over the head
yeah, pretty much.
with like the this like diamond shaped gem on top that's either purple or some weird color. But I think that was about all I had for the 2003. I think the only other one that I wanted to throw out. Well, man, there are a lot of good figures this year, actually. Um,
Yeah,
because the one that they updated, I don't think the color scheme works, but I like the sculpt and I like what they did with it. Was the Night Creeper. Um, the Night Creeper is supposed to be a kind of a techno ninja, and I think they got that vibe perfectly with the
yeah, they
version
did.
5 Night
It's
Creeper. But the paint job is it doesn't work. It's a medium blue with silver and some black. Again, it sounds like that should work, but it just doesn't.
there were numerous repaints of that Night Creeper. The very coolest one came a year later, where it's in this real washed out grayish green type color
Yeah.
with this super dark silver armor, but he's got glowing, like, otherworldly eyes. Like, it
Yes.
looks like a possessed ninja. And
And
from then on,
the
in my
proportions are kind
mind,
of off on these two. I mean,
well, yeah, the
arms
proportions are a mess. I
are
mean, yeah, the arms are too long, the legs are too long, they're too skinny. But that that the glowing eyes look immediately struck me as being iconic. And so whenever I think of the original Night Creeper, this version of the Night Creeper actually added a bunch of dimension to those ninjas that was never there. I decided at that point that even the original Night Creeper, if they took the wrap and the goggles and the mask off, they probably too have glowing green supernatural eyes. It gave them kind of an inhuman look, very much like Mortal Kombat fans think of a character like Reptile, where he was definitely not entirely human if you look behind the mask. He, yeah, this version of the Night Creeper had ridiculous proportions, but
yeah,
the look of it was so awesome
yeah.
that have no. I mean, it came out a year later, but again, that would not exist if the blue and silver version didn't exist. And as it was, as a figure itself, I thought the blue and silver version was interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
just again the proportions are hard to get past, especially now. A lot of this stuff did not hold up well.
No, no. But
And as a customizer, I honestly don't know what I would do if somebody just handed me the figure and said, "Okay, we want you to paint this. It's a night creeper. It's a techno ninja. Go to town. Do what you want." I would have to think about that for a long time. I mean, I don't. And painting is, like I've said before, painting is my thing. Um, and I don't even know where I would start on that because I like the sculpt. I think it works aside from the proportions. But I don't know where I would go with that to 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 make it to give it a night creeper version or a night creeper feel. I think maybe I would try and go with purple and black maybe, so it's semi reminiscent of the original, but and some sort of metallic because I do like the metallic silver. Uh, Maybe a dark gunmetal would be cool. I don't know. I don't see. It's like they did their best, and I didn't like it, but I don't. This is one of the few times where I don't have any room to talk because I don't know what I would have done with it either, and that's saying something for me when I can't. Where it's like, yeah, you know what? I don't know what I would do with that myself. So I mean, it's not bad. Don't get me wrong. I don't like it, but it's not bad either. And I don't know what I would do with it.
um,
It's like
yeah,
it's
it
like that first version of the Iron Grenadier in this line. I don't know why the black and the red and the silver don't work, but they just don't. But the gray and the red and gold are fantastic.
um, I think the Night Creeper is one of the new Sculpt figures that, yes, it is maligned because of the proportions, but it's one of the few that I find to be acceptable somehow on its own. It's ridiculous, but maybe with a little bit of a modified sculpt, shorter legs, shorter arms, I think it would have been phenomenal.
See, and I think if I was going to customize one right now, I would take the arms and legs off a Sand Viper
um, well,
from that year.
and I would say, well, and I would use the same arms and the same lower legs. I would shorten them. I'd actually chop them up. I'd actually shorten them a little bit, resculpt the details, so they had more human proportions, and I'd give them different upper legs that weren't, you know, I mean, because people's femur bones should not be longer than their tibia bone, but in this case
Yeah,
they
they
are.
should. Yeah, they
Um,
should, actually.
but the
Your
last
femur,
one,
your femur is the leg in your is the bone in your upper leg, and yes, it is.
right, and it should not be anywhere near as long as the lower leg bone, but on that night creeper it is. Um,
Okay.
but the last one I'm going to because next episode we're going to talk about the rest of our favorites from the new Sculpt line. But the last one I want to mention is one where I wish the figure had been better because the head sculpt, because the art was really cool. But there was something, if you looked at the Spy Troops gear that he had, technically it was supposed to be some kind of a Firefly disguise. But if you don't do that, if you just look at it like it's an infiltration mask, um, Sergeant Hacker,
Oh,
what
yeah.
he basically was, if you between the design that you see on the card and his description on the file card, what the character basically was he was like Splinter Cell. He's a silent infiltrator that uses the tech gadgets and stuff, but he's not he's in and out to do the dirty work and get no aplomb for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was basically he's like Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. It was an awesome idea. Oh, and then you just look at the figure, and you're just like this big burly dude with this thinning hairline. I mean, look, I can dig a figure with a thinning hairline,
Yeah.
but you know, it just didn't match the card art at all. Now, a lot of times, I would use him as a separate character because I customized uh, a version with better proportions in the same color scheme that better matched the card art. But I think the figure on its own, I thought was really cool if you ignore the card art because he was unique looking in terms of we didn't see a lot of Joes with uh, thinning hair like the original Zap and Grunt and Grand Slam, with a little bit of, but I mean, it's got a lot of character in the figure. I just wish it matched the card art better, but he had a ton of potential and he was never seen again. I don't think he ever got a repaint. He's never got an update. He's really, but you know what I used him for? Because I didn't think Sneak Peek would ever get an update. That's exactly what I used. I used him as a new Sculpt version of Sneak Peek. He was gray, just like Sneak Peek.
Yeah.
And
if you change the dark blue to red, that would look really nice.
Yeah. So that's exactly. I never painted it. I just used him as Sneak Peek. And like I said, I used other parts and I customized my own. But you know what? In the same pack with him was Scalpel, the Cobra medic.
I was going to mention that too, but I tried to like Scalpel. I really did, especially as a medic.
I appreciated it.
I like the scrubs. I mean, that's exactly what I'm wearing right now. But
yeah, but
the weird,
I loved it.
Things strapped to his chest. It just.
It
hits my work vibe, and it's just like, no, no.
Well, see, for me, I appreciated it because he was basically like I felt like he was Cobra's own answer to MASH. Like he's a dedicated doctor. He just isn't always in it for the medical knowledge. Sometimes he's in it for what can I learn by cutting it up?
Yeah, absolutely. Showboating.
But I mean, Scout, he was just, up until that point in the comic books, there had been medics in the Cobra. They were Medi-Vipers, and they were interesting, but we never got a figure of it. But this was a medical doctor. It was like a surgeon gone wrong. Basically, for every bit that
we got a Medi-Viper in 2005.
Yeah, but it was a repaint of Scalpel. But I'm saying
new head sculpt.
Yeah, dude, I know, but I'm saying in 2003, Scalpel was an exciting character because nothing like it existed in the toy line before that. And honestly, proportions-wise,
it's not bad. It's a nice figure for proportions. Absolutely. That's one of the reasons that I tried to like it. Is because with all this stuff coming out, I remember seeing it in the store. I'm like, man, the proportions are on it are really nice.
So
behind it.
Yeah. So he's one where.
And again, the accessories are goofy.
Yeah. Oh. Yes. I mean, on his wrist, he's got that little saw blade that flips forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever.
The mask, head wrap, and it's like.
Yeah. The accessories brought him into a point where he was a little over the top, but I thought as it was, just the figure itself, without looking at all the other stuff, yeah, I think it was a nifty idea. But see, there's a lot of good in the new Sculpt era.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of it
just gets better from here.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to sort of squint, and you just have to say, and hold your breath and say, nope, it was a good toy. don't nitpick, don't nitpick, don't nitpick, because they are fine unless you nitpick. So,
Yeah,
but
so
yeah,
I think on the next episode we'll do like 2004, 2005. I think 2 years at a
oh yeah,
time is a
oh
good.
yeah, yeah, because we're gonna because next up is Valor versus Venom,
Yeah.
and then the DTC line, and there's a lot of good again to talk about in both lines. So I'm looking forward to that.
And then I did want to point out that this particular, it's not that just JD and I wanted to talk about this, but this was a request from a viewer. So I don't remember who it was, and it's been a while, and it's been a couple people that have requested this. So
Well,
we do take into account what people are. We do check the feedback on the um, on the YouTube and the comments below. I've been kind of a little lax on that since I've been in quarantine, but I do usually check it, usually about once a day, and I do try and
well,
respond to everybody.
yeah. Well, before we, oh, there it is. Hey, I was looking for my bottle cap. Um, yeah, before we actually did this, um, going into this, we had the podcast set up, but I wasn't entirely sure what we were gonna do with it. But somebody posted, um, somebody on the GI Joe Bird Facebook page on the in the group posted a picture of a bunch of these Joe versus Cobra figures in their packaging and asked if anybody was collecting them and whatever. And I just made a response that said, well, we're going to talk about it on General Geekery very soon. But when we started this, I didn't actually realize that very soon literally meant, oh, I said that an hour ago. So, hey, we did it. So, but yeah, I do appreciate people requesting it. I'm glad. I'm glad that people are. I'm glad that people want to hear what we have to say, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter of this one.
Well, and I like the fact that people are suggesting stuff for us to do. I like it's nice to know that number one, people are watching it, and that people people have topics that they want us to talk about, and we are very open to that, and actually look forward to that.
Any requests or any ideas of people, if there's something people want to hear, yeah, please bring it up, suggest it, leave it in the comments, or message me, or just, even just put a comment, leave it in the comments on YouTube, or just make a Facebook response, say, what about this, or what about that?
We do have a Facebook group, and I we had a Facebook page. I have a Facebook page, but I think it got unpublished. But we have because only JD and I could post to it, I think. So JD created a group, and we do have a Facebook group for General Geekery. And
it's not particularly active, but hey, if people want to contribute, they can. But we'll put a link up in the show notes to that group. And Brian, he'll edit photos of all these figures we're talking about so that people who have never seen them or haven't seen them in a long time, you won't have to go to Yo Joe and look it up.
Now I have something to do tomorrow.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to
that. Yep, because you look like you're going stir crazy.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, man, I'm climbing the walls. And I got to do this
all right
too.
I'm going to say thank you to all the listeners. I appreciate it. You guys are tuning in.
Absolutely. I think we can see the view numbers, and we don't get many compared to, as like YouTube standards, but our views.
We get more than I ever expected to.
Yeah, we get more than we ever expected to, and they've effectively doubled compared to what our podcast used to get. So I think that's fantastic. So suggestions, comments below. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned, where we will go into the Valor versus Venom line next, and then we're going to move on from there and finish off go all the way up to the Retaliation line. And I personally cannot wait to talk about the Pursuit of Cobra, because that is aside from Real American Hero, is my, oh geez, and DTC too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the later shows, because the DTC is one of my favorite lines, and so is Pursuit of Cobra. So thank you for watching. Again, as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all those fun social media things, and stay tuned for more episodes of Joe and Geekery.
Good night.
Good night.